Microbial Odyssey.
Hello, today we look at organization of life. First, before we proceed, we have to realize that there are some characteristics that living things must fulfill for them to be classified as living things. And some of these characteristics, which we have seen before, are chronized by the word Mr. Niger G for movement, respiration, nutrition, irritability or sensitivity, growth, excretion, reproduction, and death. So these are the characteristics, about 8 of them, 8 characteristics every living thing must meet for them to be classified or categorized as living thing. And living organisms are arranged in such a way that they are able to fulfill these 8 characteristics of living thing. So that is the essence of looking at the organization of life. So in the organization of life, we try to look at how are organisms arranged that enable them to fulfill these respective characteristics of living things. Also, I want you to know that large multicellular organisms are made up of micromolecules, right, which come together to form that large organism, while micromolecules come together to form a multicellular organism based on the advancement in evolution. Now, let's look at what organization of life is all about. Organization of life basically has to do with the existence of life from a single cell organism to a multicellular organism with complex forms that perform different functions. So you look at the arrangement of life from the simple cellular organism to the multicellular form of organism, which each of these complex forms having different functions. Okay, also recall that we said that moving from single cell to multicellular, you know that we said that organisms that exist as a single cell, organisms that exist as a single cell are called unicellular organisms, while organisms that exist as with more than one cell are called multicellular organisms. Okay, so that simply tells us that some organisms can exist alone as unicellular organisms, while some require several cells coming together to form that organism, which we call the multicellular organism. Okay, so there are 4 basic levels of organization of life, which are the cell, we have tissue, we have organ, and we have system. And these 4 cells, these 4 levels cumulate to form the organisms. So these are the levels of organization of life, from the cell to the tissue, tissue to organ, organ to system, system to organism. Now, why is the cell the first level? Recall that we said that cell is the basic structural functional unit of life. That is to say that every living thing is made up of cell, which is one of the cell theory. The first postulate of the cell theory says that every living thing, cell is the basic structural functional unit of life, meaning that every living thing is actually made up of cell. So, however, you have to realize that based on this organization, some organisms can exist and function as a single cell. Some organisms are able to exist and function as just a single cell. Example of this organism of life. Examples include the paramecium, the amoeba, the euglena, and so on and so forth. So these organisms include within their cells inclusion bodies such as the organelles that are able to help them fulfill these 8 characteristics of living things. Okay, then we move over to the tissue level. Now, when several similar cells come together, or a collection of several similar cells with the sole purpose of a particular function, to carry out a particular function, they are termed the tissue. Okay, several cells come together to carry out a particular function are called the tissue. All right. So now, before we also go to the tissue, these are organisms that are able to exist as a single cell. Now let's look at some examples of cells in the animal. Some examples of cells in the animal, we have the sperm cells, we have the egg cell, okay, we have the white blood cell, we have the red blood cell, and so on and so forth. These are different cells, okay, that can be found in man, for example. Okay, so the tissue, we say the tissue, collection of different similar cells. Okay? Performing a single function. So, a collection of different cells with the sole purpose of performing a particular function is called tissue. Now, example of tissues in man or animals include the blood tissue. The blood is a tissue because it contains different cells such as the white blood cell, the red blood cells, and the platelets. And also we have the nerve tissue. Okay, we have the nerve tissue. While in plants we have the vascular tissue, which comprises of the xylem and the phloem. The ground tissue or the strain tissue, the parenchyma, sclerenchyma, and collenchyma are example of the ground tissues. And also, however, you have to realize that some organisms can exist as aggregate of cells, just as some organisms can exist as cells, just as the paramecium, the amoeba, and the euglena. Some organisms can exist alone as collection of different cells, that is in the tissue state. An example is the hydra. The hydra is an example. Okay. Then, looking at the organ is a collection of different similar tissues performing a single function. Different tissues coming together to perform a particular function are called the organ. Example of organs, we have the root, the stem, the leaves in plants, while in animals we have the kidney, the liver, the heart, the skin. Okay? Now, we look at the system. The system is a collection of different similar organs performing a single function. So, different organs coming together to carry out a particular function is known as the system. Example of systems in animals we have the digestive system, reproductive system, respiratory system, and so on. While in plants we have the root system, the reproductive system as well, and the shoot system, among others. Okay, so these different systems comprises or come together to make the organism. So, and different organs. Organ is a collection of different tissues, and tissue is a collection of different cells. So the sole purpose is that for multicellular organisms that contain the system, the organ, the tissue, and the cells, they help them to maintain or to achieve the characteristics of the living things. For example, one of the characteristics of living things is excretion. The excretory system is responsible for that. Another one is reproduction. We have the reproductive system. Okay, each of these systems, for example, we have the digestive system again for nutrition. The digestive system comprises of the esophagus, the stomach, the mouth, and so on and so forth. These are different organs that are found in the digestive system. Okay, so for a general summary, we have the cell. The cell is the basic fundamental unit of life. Okay, and we have said that some organisms can exist as cells. Okay, different cells come together to form the tissue. Different tissues or different similar tissues with the same function come together to form the organ. Different organs with the same function come together to form the system. And in the organism, there are several systems that ensure that the organism is able to fulfill all the characteristics of living things. Thank you for listening. See you some other time.